Masters of War, sung by Eddie Vedder from the People Speak, the remarkable documentary based on the late, great historian Howard Zinn's works. This is Democracy Now! I'm Amy Goodman. In Japan, the Prime Minister, Yukio Hatoyama, sparked outrage this week when he announced he's decided to keep an American air base on the island of Okinawa. Before last year's historic election victory, Hatoyama had vowed to move the base off of Okinawa, or even out of Japan. On Sunday, he said he decided to relocate the base to the north side of the island, as originally agreed upon with the U.S. The Japanese Prime Minister's decision was met with anger on Okinawa, where 90,000 residents rallied last month to oppose the base. Hatoyama explained his decision by saying since taking office, he'd learned to appreciate the role that the Marines play as a deterrent in the region, that Okinawa was the most strategic location for them. Half the estimated 47,000 U.S. troops in Japan are stationed on the island. Well, a number of activists opposed to U.S. military bases were recently here in New York for the International Conference for a Nuclear-Free, Peaceful, Just, and Sustainable World. Democracy Now!'s Anjali Kamat and I spoke to three of them. They were from Japan, from Guam, and Hawaii. Kyle Kajihiro is the program director for the American Friends Service Committee in Hawaii. He helps to coordinate the DMZ Hawaii Aloha network that opposes military expansion in Hawaii. Kazue Akibayashi is a professor and activist in Japan with the Women's International League of Peace and Freedom and the Women's International Network Against Militarism. And Melvin Wan Pat Borja is an educator and poet from Guam and part of the We Are Guahan network opposed to the military base buildup on Guam. We began by asking Kyle Kajihiro to explain the broader context of U.S. military bases in East Asia and the Pacific.
I think it's important to consider how important the Pacific has been for the expansion of American empire. And Hawaii was one of the first casualties in 1893 when U.S. troops invaded and occupied the sovereign kingdom of Hawaii to establish a forward base that enabled the U.S. to defeat Spain in the Spanish-American War and then acquire its colonies in the Philippines and Guam and also Puerto Rico and Cuba. And that sets up another conflict with Japan during World War II, in which the United States emerges as a global power with nuclear capabilities and acquires new colonies in the Marianas, Marshall Islands, and Okinawa. So we see the legacy of that history played out. And America has always considered the Pacific, similar to Latin America, as its, its own domain, its special domain. They call it the American Lake, and that's what we're struggling against, is that idea that the U.S. has this dominion without consideration for the peoples and the human rights of people in that area. So right now we are seeing that the Asia Pacific is even becoming more important with the rise of China, and the U.S. sees China as its main strategic competitor. And that's, I think, is a lot of what's driving the military realignment in Korea, in Japan, Okinawa, and Guam, to encircle China and basically neutralize its capabilities.
Kazue, can you talk about what happened in Japan last week? There was a major protest, 100,000 people in Okinawa protesting the construction of a new U.S. military base. Explain what's going on with Japan-U.S. relations and with U.S. military bases in Japan.
Okinawa is a part of Japan. It's a southernmost part of Japan. It's a small prefecture out of 47, where U.S. military 75% of U.S. military facilities exclusively used by the U.S. military is located. So there is this high concentration of U.S. military in Okinawa, and that is why we are highlighting the problem in Okinawa. There has been a proposal of building a new base in Okinawa, a completely new one and state-of-the-art military facility in Okinawa, which was protested by people in the community for 10 years by now. We had this regime change last year, and the new administration promised that there will be no build-up in Okinawa. However, what is going on now is that they are negotiating with the U.S. government and saying that we cannot help building this new one. So that is when, and this has been disclosed in the past month or so, and that is why the Okinawan people are raging against, and they felt the need to express their protest against this newly built up of base in Okinawa, and that is how this 90,000 people gathered at this rally. And the population of Okinawa is 1.3 million. That's a lot of people who gathered, and there are many people who cannot express their protest or against their protest because the U.S. military has been there for a long time. It's the military economy is part of their life. It's very difficult for them to publicly say no. But this 90,000 people's rally showed how strong they felt.
Why are Japanese in Okinawa so opposed to the base there?
They live very close in Okinawa. They live very, very close to the military base. It's not an isolated location. The military base is here, and they have to find places where they could build their houses. It affects in many ways of their lives. Noise pollution is one of them. Environmental pollution is one of them.
The issue of rape?
Yes, yes. That's more pervasive, but deep-rooted problem that women and children, girls face in the vicinity, or not only the close vicinity, but the entire island of Okinawa face danger of sexual violence by U.S. soldiers.
And Melvin, if you can talk about what's happening on Guam.
Well, basically, with this proposed base closure in Okinawa, the remedy to this solution is really seen as transferring the bulk of these soldiers from Okinawa to Guam, and that's kind of where we come in. There's been a lot of debate about where these Marines should go, and the United States attitude towards this is that Guam is a territory. They see Guam as sovereign U.S. soil, and it allows them freedom of action, which is one of the major pieces of, or major factors in why they chose Guam, because it allows them to basically operate without having to deal with a foreign government. And so they plan to move 8,600 Marines from Okinawa to Guam, plus their 9,000 dependents. They also include an Army ballistic missile defense system, which will bring an additional 600 Army soldiers. And they plan to dredge 71 acres of coral reef in Apra Harbor in order to make room for a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier. They also have plans to acquire 2,200 additional acres of land, and they already own about a third of the island. And keep in mind, Guam is only about 31 miles long and 7 miles wide in the narrowest point. Our population is a little bit over 170,000 people, and the military predicts that at the peak year of the buildup, we will expect a population boom of about additional 80,000 people.
So 50% increase almost.
Basically.
Melvin, talk about what it was like to grow up in the shadow of these U.S. military bases in Guam. What is everyday life like? How does it impact you?
Well, the interesting thing about the base presence in Guam is that we are a United States